I love being in Bucharest. I think it's a great city to live in. We travel a lot, but it's part of the job, and I get to see a lot and meet a lot of people, so that's actually really great.
You have two projects in Bucharest.
That's correct.
And one big project in Iași.
Yes.
So you travel to Iași and back?
Very, very often. Our entire business is really set up like that. In all the parts of the business, people are constantly traveling. Whenever I go to the airport to do local flights, I always find my colleagues there, so it's always nice to have a coffee at the airport. I go to Iași weekly. I spend probably 2 days a week in Iași, so Iași has become a second home for me. And then the rest of my time I spend here in Bucharest with my colleagues in the office. We have the 2 large projects that we've announced. The one is in the northern parts, close to the office district, namely Avalon Estate. Very exciting project. We'll start construction by Q3 this year. And the other project is Bucharest Noi, Marmara Residence, 470 apartments. We're starting construction really soon. Building permit is imminent. I'm told days. Then we will be, as we call in construction, breaking ground. So
and the one in Iași, it is in which phase?
It's in development phase. So we will start construction there by the end of the first quarter next year. The project in Iași it's a massive project. It's a very ambitious project.
And by massive, you mean how many thousands of apartments?
It's 2,500 apartments and 100,000 square meters of Class A offices. And of course, there's a lot of support functions and services in the project. For instance, there will be health and fitness facilities. There will be clinics, restaurants, bars, wine bars, everything to support these primary functions of residential and offices, as well as many green parks and recreational areas. So from a planning point of view, you know, the site, if I can make a comparison between the one in Silk and the one in Bucharest, Avalon Estate, the land plot is in size the same, but Avalon is a low density, low height regime project. It's a residential project, where Silk District, it's a real urban redevelopment project.
It's a mixed one.
It's a mixed one. It's higher density. So even the land plot is the same. You know, if we're building roughly in excess of 100,000 square meters, the one in Silk is in excess of 250,000 square meters of GBA above ground. So in Silk, we literally have planned to if we imagine 12 soccer fields of basements for parking. So it's really exciting. But all the projects that we are working on are very unique and very special.
What about the prices of the homes that you are building now?
It depends on which one of the projects we talk about.
Let's talk about all of them.
Let's talk about all of them. I have to say, when we started the residential business, it's a business that we took a long-term view on. And we said to ourselves, we want to be able to make a long-term impact, one that is sustainability. We really want to bring quality projects to Romania, and we want to build these projects where they can compete in the existing market. So with that said, Avalon is what I would say is a medium to high-end project. The starting prices there is, I would say, in the region of 1,250 to 1,300 euros per square meter. But of course it depends on the type of units that you're buying, because there's 4 different types of unit typologies, many different layouts, many different sizes. Marmara is a medium typical project that is typically a urban project. For me, I imagine it's a much younger project. It's on a metro station. It's got a cool vibe. That project is starting at around 1,100 euros per square meter. So it's a well-priced project and a quality project. And the same in Silk District, we will be looking at prices from 1,000 to 1,100 euros per square meter. That project's of course still in design. Since we're building 2,500 apartments, it remains a medium project, so it's similar to Marmara, but in the context of Iași. And therefore it has to be accessible for people, of course, to be able to buy and afford. So I think that will give you a good idea where they are. in pricing.
And I'm sure here in Bucharest it's not really difficult to find clients if you have good projects. But what about Iași? Because it's a different market.
I think, you know, it's a universal thing. If you have a good product, no matter where you build it, where you make it, where there's of course demand, and if people have buying power, those projects will succeed. It's often the case that where, you know, there is a projects of less quality, those projects will be the first to suffer. I think the residential market in Romania generally is really coming online now, in the sense that people are starting to understand what they want from projects, and
what do they want?
Consumers are informed. You know, we can speak about universally what people want from a day-to-day kind of lifestyle.
No, what do they want from? What is the ideal apartment? What is the ideal home?
I think it depends. First of all, I think the ideal apartment is a well-designed apartment with a good light orientation, and it's something that is a good investment, not only for how you spend your life, but also that it's an investment somewhere down the line. An apartment that doesn't frustrate you because it's badly designed is a good apartment. It's something that everybody wants. I mean, we all want to be able to, if we bought a new apartment, maybe we didn't think about how many sockets the designers put into the apartment by the time we went and bought it, because, you know, if you're a layman, you don't think about how you're going to plug in your microwave, for instance. But when you move in and you can't do that, that's something that will frustrate you. So it has to be designed for functionality.
And practical.
And practical.
I understand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. But also then the environment that you build your apartment in. What do you see when you look out of your window? You know, did you invest in making beautiful green spaces, recreational areas? Is it an environment that you feel good in, that you want to be in? It's a whole lot of ingredients that I think is kind of universal, that ticks boxes for most people, and that's really what we're achieving with the projects as a standard at Prime Capital with the residential projects. They're all unique in the sense that we're creating really quality common spaces. We're focusing on bringing as much green and real quality green spaces into the projects. We have mostly car-free concepts where cars are parked in basements instead of upper ground, so that you have pedestrian areas, parks. When you walk out your front door, you actually walk into green instead of looking just into a sea of cars parked everywhere, as we see here in most of the cities.
But what are the main criteria of the Romanian buyers to have a green park, to have a nice view, to have light in home, or the budget?
Yeah, I think traditionally, because the market has offered really generally in an affordable market, what we've seen in Bucharest is projects that didn't have a high standard, not from a materials point of view and not from a design point of view. And of course, then people started to focus really on budget. And that's why, you know, in my experience, most people are focused on, but what is the price? But net usable, you know, how much usable square meters am I getting out? Where, you know, I see a living space, and I think people are starting to appreciate that more as well in Romania. Living space is more than the usable square meters. It's actually about the quality of usable square meters. The old saying, quality over quantity. You know, I could have 100 square meters of usable that's really dark and dead corners in a home and I can't use it. Or I'd rather have a 70 square meter apartment of the usable space that's well designed with lots of light, without beams and without obvious columns in the middle of rooms. So I would say, of course, budget is important. But I think people are educated enough today to understand that it's a long-term investment, and people will be paying a slight premium and will be prepared to pay that premium for a quality project.
Speaking about investment, how much do you invest in all these three projects?
We generally do not say what the investment amounts are, because I think it sometimes dilutes the message. But Prime Capital as a large pipeline, we have over 900 million euros of investment in existing pipeline of projects.
In all the projects? In
all of our projects, of which the residential is about 350 million between these three projects. Just to give a ballpark, I mean, it's fairly big projects. I think it's safe to say that they have significant investments. But for us, it's not so important to speak about the investment amounts. It's rather what do we do with the amounts we're investing and that those investments are sustainable.
Do you plan other residential projects? Do you want to buy now land for other projects?
I can safely say that we're always on the lookout for new projects and adding projects to the pipeline. So yes, we have a long-term view. We will be building houses in this market in 30 years from now, and you will see the Prime Capital brand.
Literally houses?
Literally houses, I mean, apartments, homes, you know. The kind of projects that we're looking at are projects that can make an impact. So those are large-scale projects. So it's not so easy to find the right land plots. There's certainly some drivers that one is looking at that makes these projects sustainable. But we're constantly looking and planning projects, and we will, I'm fairly sure, be announcing some new projects in the residential pipeline very soon.
In Bucharest or other cities?
We're looking everywhere. In Bucharest and all the secondary cities. We're not discriminating against any cities. I think there's a market everywhere. But we research on the ground. There's questions one asks. There's a lot of factors. That's why it takes time to add projects to the pipeline and the right projects to the pipeline.
But how much time it takes you to find a good piece of land and to close the deal?
It's a constant process. So I think by the time we close a deal, we've looked at multiple plots and done multiple feasibilities. I mean, we're looking at 40, 50 pieces of land and then maybe acquiring one. That gives you an idea.
You are very picky.
Yeah, one has to be picky. And there's a lot of questions to be asked. You know, there's lots of issues that one has to consider, lots that has to be factored in, and this all takes time. I always wish we can really bring people behind the scenes of projects, because you know, maybe you see a render by the time we announce the project, but by the actual time that we have designed the concept, we've already been spending 2 years on the project, sometimes with so many people working on that project, and in different, from lawyers to designers to engineers. So it's a big team behind. It's a big team and a fairly complicated process. But we are quite a diligent team. I think we work with some of the best real estate professionals here in Bucharest, are part of the Prime Capital team. So we're very good in execution. We say we have excellence in execution, and that really applies to the moment we even start considering an acquisition, right until we do the after sales. It's every aspect is carefully considered and designed.
Do you have experience in residential or in construction?
Me? Yes, so that's it's almost all I know. I grew up in a construction family. My father built homes. I studied law and business, and then I actually founded and managed a general contracting company in Johannesburg in South Africa from the age of 23. I've built some of the most expensive real estate projects, single projects in Johannesburg, but also I've built affordable housing for mining companies. I have built many homes and project managed many residential type projects. So yeah, that's, I would say. So
you have a very large experience, so to say.
Yes, that's and I have large experience, long-term experience, but I would also like to add I have the experience from the roots up. So starting from building, you know, something
from the foundation,
simple, from the foundation, or from building a single boundary wall. You know, so I really understand the construction process very well, and the difference that design details can make in the end user's experience. And I would go as far as saying I'm really, really passionate, especially about residential projects, the idea of living spaces. I've always had a great passion. I always move because I always want to, move into a new place and make it the perfect place again. It's an obsession, and now that's they always say you have to do what you love. I love what I do. I feel this is a place where you can make a real difference and impact on people's lives, and that's really special.
What other trends are do you see in the residential market here, or in new projects, in new type of homes, or in design?
I think the trends are Romania will follow international trends. It's really about, I think, mixed-use developments and large projects will be the projects we will see in the future across the cities in Romania. I think the reason for those are people want more time and people want to be more efficient with how they use their time. I think people are moving back to the central parts of the cities so that they can be closer to work. If not, even if work, like in Silky, you have your office right, a block from where you're living.
But do you think people would like to work here and live here very close?
If you think about it, that's what people traditionally have always done. That's the base. There's the base that we've constructed cities on. Mm-hmm. And the thing that we love most about, if we look at all these cities that are so big on attracting tourists, whether it's Paris, whether it's Amsterdam, New York, London, those cities started off by building blocks of neighborhoods. In that neighborhood, you found your doctor, you had your apartment, you bought your flowers, you had your little spot that you have your coffee. So it wasn't a big deal to run out and go and buy milk. And then nowadays, the way cities have developed through urban sprawl and of course with cars, so everybody went further out because you could drive. That made a difference. The point is then things started becoming more difficult now because the cities, there's lots of people in cities and infrastructure is so far out, so people tend to sit for an hour in traffic or an hour and a half. And I always use this as a personal example. If I've dropped my kids off at school and I have to get a call an hour later that one of the kids are, not feeling well, it's a complete disaster because the school is far away from work. Then that is far away from the house, so that isn't a quick, when
everything
I was a kid,
is far away
it's
from
far
everything.
Away. So that's like 4 hours out of your day, and it shouldn't really be like that. And that's where the trends are going, is finding solutions to give people more time, and of course quality. And I think the trend is also moving generally. People are using their homes differently. People are cooking less, so kitchens are certainly
and going out more.
And going out more, exactly. So one has to consider all of those things when you're now designing spaces. And developers absolutely has to invest more in common areas and your recreation areas around the developments, because it's almost that we now have this shared ability to collect everything together. So instead of each of us having a small square meter of our own garden, why not let's all have a park together if there's so many of us in one space? So it's about the quality of those spaces.
And about sharing spaces.
And sharing spaces. This is the normal culture today. It's that people, we ride sharing. We're going to start sharing our communal spaces. We want to.
And we like co-working also.
Yeah, and co-work, and people work differently, so as we see in corporations a lot of the time now, people have homes, desks at home, people come in, different periods of the day, people travel a lot and then have sort of flexible desks in their offices. All of those things in the end has an influence how we design projects. The most simple example is cars and electric scooter and charging points and stations. And okay, so already today there are electric cars and we charge them, but it's still a smaller percentage. Maybe 10% of people have electric cars. But what is that percentage going to look like in 5 years? And what are we doing?
It will be bigger.
It will be bigger, much bigger. And what do we do today in our projects when we design them to make sure that we can accommodate that infrastructure? So it is really also about anticipating the future and what the future trends will look like.
Would you do a large mixed-use project in Bucharest?
Yes, on the right piece of land, certainly.
But why did you do it? Why are you doing it in Iași and not here?
In Iași, we are doing specifically Silk District because there's a very urgent need right now in Iași to have the office infrastructure extending. Otherwise, this incredible business growth that has been going on in the city for the past 5-7 years is going to come to a halt. People are already sitting, a lot of tenants, office tenants are sitting in multiple buildings across the city, and it's not very efficient. And we saw this opportunity to really build something big like Silk in Iași, and of course we found the right plot of land. There's 10 hectares, it's centrally located, it already has infrastructure around it, it's an old brownfield site, so it's a perfect sustainable project to launch.
Brownfield means in the middle of the city somehow, but
it means
ex-factory or?
Yeah, it means a former, in this case, a former factory or industrial use that's no longer in use. You know, so it had.
There are many.
Yeah, there are many, and and that's another trend that I foresee in the future. There are many of these sites all over the cities in Romania. These sites has to be redeveloped. You know, they usually built around really good infrastructure. Because previously they were very intense on utility use, so it already has water, it has infrastructure, yet all of that has been paid for and it's sitting there and it's not utilized. We should be utilizing that instead of going onto the outskirts of the cities, buying these large greenfield plots, destroying what is there, and
having no infrastructure.
It really puts more infrastructure on more pressure on existing infrastructure, and we have to spend more of taxpayers' money to build those roads. So therefore we can now bring all of that into the central parts of the city and utilize what is already there. It's a very sustainable solution, and we see it happening all over the world. And I cannot see that it's not a solution for the cities in Romania as well.
Have you started to sell the apartments or the homes that you are building?
Yes, we have started sales in Marmara. I think we started selling, I'm speaking under correction, but it was in the first quarter of this year. Initially, we put the first building, one of the smaller buildings adjacent to the boulevard, on the market. We sold that very quickly, and we released more units. We almost have sold now 100 units so in a very short period of time, so we're very excited. In Avalon, we released only 35 units, the first T block. We've always maintained in Avalon that we want to build that project so that people can really see the difference, because the type of units that we're building apart from the apartments, things like townhouses and Parkview apartments, is something that's relatively new on the market. And
what is a townhouse?
So a townhouse is it's a house with shared walls. It's a typical
house with many apartments.
Yeah, so it's one house. It's your house. It's usually got 2 or 3 stories, but you're sharing walls with neighbors. So it's a house with neighbors on each side. Where, you know, a normal villa will have a house with gardens around it. In this case, the houses are sort of
they're connected.
They're connected. You often see it in the UK. And if we think about Amsterdam, there's like long lines of houses, you know.
Yeah, because they have no land.
Yeah, they have no land, of course. So we really thought there's always this disparity in the moment in the market, because on the one hand you have like apartments, and then you have villas, and that's kind of what there is, and then there's very little in between. And we decided to introduce in Avalon a townhouse concept, because we wanted to build something that's really unique and special, and be able to build a community there that really can cater to a lot of like-minded people's needs, but from, you know, generation when you start and you buy your first apartment up to when you want to live in a villa, if that is your dream. So it's we only have approximately 110 townhouses. It's not that there's many of them, but they're really fantastic looking units. I'm very excited.
But who are your clients? Who are the people who bought your apartments?
Well, We always, and in Avalon, I can say we really have a very wide range of clients and interests because of the wide range of the project and the fact that it's located in the north. In a project like Marmara, we see that most of our clients are young professionals between, I would say, the ages of 25 to 45 who are looking for kind of a lock-up-and-go solution and a fast way and a certain way to get to the office.
They work in this area?
Yeah, they work in this area. It's same in Avalon, a lot of people from around this area. So I would say that from what I've seen, that's our clients. And of course, you always have the outliers as well. I'm not saying they're all between the age of 25 and 45, but certainly the largest part of the requirement is coming from that group.
And they buy with a loan, or do you finance them somehow?
So we have a program that we've launched called Flex Assist. It's a program where we give people who buy in our projects the opportunity to, with flexible solutions, to be able to acquire a home, especially where they do not qualify for traditional mortgages. We know that the traditional mortgage market has got quite stringent policies. You need high deposits. They don't take into consideration all income sources, and we've taken the approach that people need more flexibility today in the way they find solutions, and we've created this product specifically not to compete with banks. It's more of making our product accessible to people and giving them options, and also to give people access, especially younger people, access.
But how does it work exactly?
It's a flexible project. You have the opportunity to give a deposit as small as 5% instead of 15% if it's lei denominated, or 25%. You then you lease the product for a minimum period of 2 years, after which you have a real option to convert that into a mortgage. If that is converted, or if you do convert that will then become essentially whatever you've paid towards your rental, you will then be subtracted towards your period of repayment.
It's a sort of a rent-to product.
A little bit. So more complicated than that, of course. But essentially, you acquire, even during your period that you are, let's say, paying your rental, you still have you get the same rights as an owner would have, an ownership. So it's a very flexible product. I always think it came from this idea when I acquired my first property. We had finance solutions. The banks introduced products where you could get 100% loans. So that actually meant that instead of going and sitting and renting somewhere for 10 years, you ended up and trying to save money at the same time to come up with a deposit. It's almost like you sitting in two different areas. It's like a kind of it's difficult. And it allowed me this kind of solution to enter the market much quicker and to be investing into my own place. And that's really why we came up with this solution for our projects. Of course, we only have that in prime capital projects. It's a way for us to also show our own confidence in our projects. And it has to be a primary residence. You have to really intend to live
live
there,
not to rent it.
To live there, yes, exactly.
The last question of our discussion: how do you see the real estate market in 10 years from now? Let's say.
And generally, the real estate, the residential real estate.
General, the real estate.
General. I think there's going to be a lot of, specifically in Romania, there's going to be a lot of construction. So cities will change rapidly. I think we've seen it already in Romania over the last 10 years. The skylines are changing. The market will become more and more competitive for sure. I think there's scope to build, but the scope is that people's need is going to move towards quality. People are more informed, whatever market that is. Or whatever segment of the market that is. So as competition gets tougher, people will have thinner pockets. You have to be able to build large scale, have good concepts, and make a mass impact on the mass market. That's where I'm seeing the market going.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We had here today with us Maggie Kitsoff, Residential Managing Director at Prime Capital. Thank you for watching us. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.